Streaming?
Yep. Can you hear me well?
Yes, can hear you very well.
Oh, great.
So right now you are live. We're very much into our hackathon and into all the conversations that are happening.
Oh, nice.
Everyone's starting to wave back. Let's first start with an introduction. Who you are and what you're bringing to this conversation.
Yes, well, so I'm Roberto Valenti. I'm very excited to be here. My background is in artificial intelligence. I've got my doctorate at the University of Amsterdam, and we did use artificial intelligence to basically do something we call the human-centric computing. So using AI to bring the human at the center of the computation. And well, I started a company a few years ago about basically interpreting human faces and analysis of faces, the direction of interest and facial expressions, the age and the gender and so on, to basically serve the human in a more efficient way. But I started to realize that actually it's not about the technology you develop, but there is something about the market that is steering technology in the direction that basically it's more profitable. So there is a kind of like the money-driven market, let's say. So I was looking for alternatives, and about, I guess about 3 years ago, I got in touch with a concept called resource-based economy. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Maybe dig into that in case somebody in the room isn't familiar with that.
So the concept is, well, it states that we're born in a certain kind of system, socio-economical system, and we're not really aware that basically there are some rules within the system that slowly they emerge into a certain kind of system behavior that is not was not designed for. And basically in the resource-based economy, they basically mentioned that the wars and poverty is something that it comes out from the set of rules that we use within our system. And they propose to basically change the set of rules, change the value system, and going from an economical value system of money to a value system of resources. In the moment that you use resources as your value system, okay, so what does that mean? Imagine the planet and all the resources on the planet, and the idea is to declare all the resources common heritage of all the people living on the planet. So there is no concept of ownership, and if you do that, then the most sensible thing to do would be to just intelligently assign all the resources on the planet to the satisfaction of the needs of every human living on it. And so at this point, basically, you don't need a monetary system, you just need efficient allocation of resources. And of course, when you want to tap into a non-renewable, it's going to be very complicated because you basically need to ask authorization to the entire planet to be getting access to that kind of resource. So concepts like sustainability and circular economy become directly embedded into the economical system rather than a nice and the right thing to do. Yeah. So sorry for the resource-based economy deviation. We have, since then, I've been basically try to find a way to bring this system into existence. The idea is like, of course, declaring all the resources of the planet as common heritage is not something that I see happening, because it requires all the owners of these resources or all the government to actually agree on this, and this is something that is pretty science fiction. But that's why I was trying to develop a system that would slowly transform the current system into this new economical system. And fast forward a couple of years, and we are now we call it WeQuest, and it's an application that is designed to actually achieve this transformation. And we'll talk about it in this session. Yeah.
Floor's all yours. I'm sure I'm very much interested in finding out more about it.
Yep. Okay, maybe I can do some slides. It's over here, yes. Can you see my slide? Yes.
Cropped a little bit.
Can you see it?
We can. It's just cropped a little bit. No, it's right. Sorry.
Just press it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so like the basic idea here is that we're trying to get a full system change. That means that we're not trying to change the system that there is. We're just going to create a new system, an alternative system, and then we just give the choice to people to choose which of the system works for them. For the people that are in which the current system works, of course, we're not going to have to convince them that they need to change the system. But for the majority of the people where the current system does not work, well, then they have the choice of just jumping into, let's call it a new grid. So where basically the rules of trading and the economical rules are set by the people that participate. And so by participating, you basically agree on this kind of set of rules, and you will have a different kind of value system and exchange system across across this new grid. So that's this new grid takes the form of a digital platform, and is a digital application. It is decentralized, so nobody actually owns it. It's something that is owned by the network itself. In fact, we use blockchain technology for to achieve this kind of security and decentralization. And the idea is that this application is can be used to basically exchange goods and services without the need of money. And the way that this function is that, well, providers, well, I can just, it starts from the idea that everywhere in the planet, there are humans, and humans have the same needs. So that's why we use here the Maslow hierarchy of needs as the indexing of any kind of form of goods and services that people can do. In this way, it also helps you focus on the fact that when you need something, you need to also kind of map it into what kind of need that is. And that's a really nice, pretty nice game to you to realize why do you actually want certain kind of things. For instance, esteem or belonging or safety. Mm-hmm. So by indexing the everything on the human needs, we're basically also saying that nothing that is in the economy, if it's not targeted at the human needs, then it might be not very interesting. So anything that passes through this app means that somebody requested it, and that's why the name request. So now imagine that every person just pops up with a wish. It's just a declarative system where you say, like, I like transportation, I like accommodation, I like food, I like yoga classes or English classes. The system doesn't really know what it is, but it just, for each of the need, it creates a global, decentralized cooperative. And this cooperative is autonomous. That means that although it has a legal status, there is no owner beside its users and the producer. Actually, the prosumers, if you're familiar with Jeremy Rifkin's naming to it. So it's a cooperative owned by both the producers and the consumers. And the consumer would have voting rights on what kind of certification do the product need to have, what kind of features, what kind of options, while the providers would just have to satisfy the kind of requests so that they would get basically the value of the system. They would get what they're looking for, basically. It's very important to say here that we use blockchain technology because what we have is trust. We need to establish a sort of trust. If you would use a database of sorts, and there is a system min that could just put up some more credits into the account of his cousin, you know, these kind of things that wouldn't make the system possible or valuable, and we will need to trust a third party to make sure that everything is correct, and even if it's not, we have no way to check. While using blockchain and open source, we can really create something that we call smart contracts. And the smart contracts are, people can subscribe to these contracts, and you know that these contracts cannot be changed, and it's going to execute exactly how it's written. It's kind of a self-executing contract. So you can establish a sort of decentralized trust, so that everybody, every peer that joins this cooperative would trust that there is never going to be a leakage of money or being spent for other things. It's really like you get rid of all these issues that could come with trust. Is it clear for now?
Yeah. Yeah. And does anyone have any questions on that in the room? Moments? No, we can carry on.
All right. So what happens when you join a cooperative as a user? You basically request something, some good and service, and you actually also specify your location so that nearby providers are able to satisfy your need. So in this example, like if you are requesting for, if this is the cooperative for, I don't know, pizza, of course, the person on the other side of the planet is not gonna, he can't respond to you for the pizza, but if we're really trying to find somebody that is closer to you. Now, pizza is a bad example here because, of course, these distances are not really for pizza, but you can understand that if it's a digital service, then a person that is on the other side of the world can actually fulfill the need. So depending on the kind of need that you have, you will find basically the closest provider that is able to give it to basically satisfy your demand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's a geolocalized marketplace, because we're now trying to push people to relocalize so that it is more interesting to us, somebody close to you to satisfy your request than somebody on the other side of the world. So, and the system there, because you declare the need, the system basically matches your need to the closest provider. So on the side of the provider, how does this look like? Well, say that this is the provider and this is the geolocation. There will be needs around the provider that are basically declared at geolocation close to the provider. And then what the system does, it just buckets these needs into this kind of histogram. And why does it do that? Because we need to know which of the goods or services are the most relevant within your surroundings. And we want to do that because we want to assign a certain kind of value, a higher value for something that the community needs the most. So what we're actually doing here is we're trying to combine like a socialistic and capitalistic concept, because we are by saying that the number of demand equal the highest, equal the price of the good or service. What we're doing is that we're directly linking the value of the system towards what the community needs the most. So it is advantageous for the people to do what the community needs the most. Yeah, and we call this karma points, because indeed it's the more you give to the society, the more you can actually get back. Because we can use, so let's consider this example. There are 143 people that need electricity, and you can basically, or let's call it kilowatts. And you can provide one that you generated from your own solar panel, and then the need would be one less, so that would be 142. If this is if by providing a kilowatt you actually get 143 karma points, when you actually provided it, the second one that will provide it will get 142, and so on. So when people focus on the most important...
Sorry,
yeah?
Can you just repeat how the clustering happens, because we did lose you for a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
There?
Yeah, okay. So these are the most important needs, right? So counted by numbers of how many people need it. So that means that if you do provide for this specific need, you will get this value as a value system. So there is no money, but just number of needs, right? So when you do provide, you get this. It's a kind of like air miles, or you know, some kind of bonus points in a way, but they reflect a certain set of rules. That's not what happened with money. With money, you basically don't have specific rules. So the difference between a money and a token, sorry, the money, the token is scriptable. You can actually use a beer token to get a beer, but not to get an haircut. While for the monetary system, with money you can get everything, and that's why money becomes this really important things to have, because with that you can get everything. But here, when we replace money with tokens, we can actually set up a set of rules that are that could be useful to avoid drawbacks that do happen with the monetary system. So this is what we're trying to do here, and we try to achieve this by connecting basically the number of token needs to the value of the things that you're doing. So this highlights basically that this is the most important needs, and this is the second, and so on. The interesting thing is that in the moment that everybody focus on the most important need because it's the most valuable, the second most important need might become the first, and so on. Like the third one might become the first when people start to focus on this. So we do suggest that in time, all of these needs will actually start to flatten out. And that's actually interesting. Things might start to happen because you basically see that all the resources, goods or services start to basically have feel more like they're actually free. And in this case, for instance, like how would you remove this number of needs? If you do use some kind of automation, automation is actually can actually help to level this kind of graph. So the most important ones would steer all the attention, and then until it's automated, and then we basically focus on the second and the third. And every time that a solution, an automation solution is found, this can be shared to the entire cooperative, because it's one single cooperative that takes care of the light or the accommodation or services. So in practice, once you do find an automation solution, it's automatically shared with the entire planet. So at the point it's the system becomes pretty much free. So it's a nice transition system. So, well, by linking the karma points from the highest demand corresponds to the highest value, then we really think that we can really start to focus on the most important things for the community. And this is, for instance, the Sustainable Development Goal, which I will touch on a little later. But so if you're here and we see that people start to satisfy this demand, but then other people need this thing. So we have an explicit balance between demand and offer constantly.
Yeah.
What we can do is use artificial intelligence. So imagine that this is one of the demands, and you see how it goes during the week, right? So for any good and service. What we can do is look at this kind of information, and everybody can look at this information because it's publicly available on the blockchain, and use artificial intelligence algorithm to basically predict what's going to happen into the future. And if you look this on the global scale, you can actually start to predict overproduction or shortages of some kind of services, and basically plan ahead for it. Imagine you are today here, and this is the demand for tomato in your local city. You can decide, and you can decide what, if you want to basically plant a tomato today to harvest in this day, or if you have another thing that is more that makes more sense. And we can allow basically artificial intelligence to map all this information and to just give suggestion on what to do, so that we're not really commanded by the machines, but the machines suggest us, given the data, what is the most important and interesting thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, here we have the Sustainable Development Goals. This is probably the most important things to do. So, like, that's why I wanted to mention this, because when you consider this kind of framework and you apply it to the Sustainable Development Goal, you would see that you can extract a lot of karma by just focusing on this kind of initiatives. And we call this karma well. So this is what includes the karma within our platform. So focusing your initiatives or your effort, basically providing your time towards any of this kind of global cooperative. So we're just going to create a global cooperative for each of the development goals. Will actually be the source of the main karma that then you can use to get goods and services from other people around you. So this is where all the good things come from, let's say. So what the system does is also gives you a tool to be able to bridge these cooperatives, these decentralized autonomous cooperatives, with each other to collaborate into providing goods and services. So, for instance, you can understand that we can have a decentralized production system that produces different pieces of the same objects. And then we will have a transportation issue, because maybe in one location the engine was made, on the other location the case was made, and then you need to bring them together and put them together. So why not using the transportation cooperative to actually achieve these kind of things? So this applies to many goods and services. So as long as we do have a way for these cooperatives to interface and exchange basically orders automatically, digitally, without anybody having to take care of it, then we can really start to rebuild a collaborative economy, where, and especially also a circular economy, where basically you would see that you can recycle the things, you can trace basically where all the resource went, and you can just get it back from the place where they went to actually feed it back into the system. And we see that in the long term, we're going to create a new sort of economic mesh, where all decentralized initiative cooperatives are actually joining together to satisfy the most important global needs. So we think that this is going to be the platform for the platform cooperative, and that is going to completely change the way that we interact with the economy, the way we work, the way that we build things, the way that we help each other. And of course, in the moment that you see where more and more transactions are going to happen within this platform, you will be able to see exactly how many resources are needed, who needs it, who is the biggest provider of that specific resource. So in the end, we're going to have a very clear global overview of where the resources are, who provides them, who needs them. And we will have, again, artificial intelligence algorithms that will be able to really optimize the exchange of goods and services by even fine-tuning the rewards that you actually get, so the number of karma. We can give AI the access to change the value, to make sure that we can predict shortages or overproduction, and that we do not deplete the natural resources of the planet. And for this, I think that's pretty important and useful. And so I really hope we can get this here as soon as possible. Yeah. So maybe we can. We are We have not launched yet, but there is a website. It's called wequest.it. Wequested, which is kind of an order. Yeah, if you would like to have more information, well, please subscribe to the newsletter. Or if you like this idea and that you would like to collaborate for the development, please send me an email at roberto@wequest.it.
Beautiful. Thanks for that opportunity. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of blown away by the whole new DNA, the whole new resource map, the tapping into a whole new neural network, and really engineering a new economy and a new way of collaborating.
Yeah, that's well. 1 second, I'm just gonna re-enable my camera. If I can.
Fun.
How do you do that?
We'll find you eventually.
Oh, here. Okay.
There we go. Welcome back.
So, I think that one of the most important this system lies at the convergence of different technologies. We can call it buzzword technology because we have like AI that is taking care of the intelligent assignment of the resources. We have the blockchain that is taking care of the trust, so that we have this and decentralization. So we have all this feeling that we're coming together. There is no boundaries, there is no differences. So. And the third is actually also the Internet of Things, because we can have just machine that just look up at these demands and just start to get in action and start to communicate with each other and execute the process to satisfy the people's need. So in the end, we have this technology. The world has got so advanced that we do have this technology available. So now it's really a responsibility of everyone to make sure that all this technology converge in the right direction for the right purposes. So that's why, yeah, I'm really looking forward for this new world that we can create.
Absolutely, and I think it's so empowering because we often think that the answers are somewhere out there, and we're working so far away with it. And meanwhile, it just takes taking what we have right now, and amazing technologies like this, and then
it can be done. It can be done. So yeah, what are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for? That is a good question.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I'd say that
questions as well.
I guess we're too distracted trying to survive. That's the problem. But this kind of system is a completely decentralized, open source initiatives that everybody can collaborate to. And when you do have a feeling that there's something important, then I do expect a lot of people to join in and make the system a reality.
Yeah. So what's the big? I think maybe that's the question. Like, what do we need to do to make the system a reality? Because it's here, but it still feels like there is something needing to happen.
Yes, that's correct. Well, the time, of course, it takes time to develop. It takes, especially for the blockchain part, when you do deploy something on the blockchain, it's pretty difficult to change. Actually, that's all power of the blockchain. That is not possible to change. So we need to have, we're now running simulations and running tests to see if everything goes correctly. So the thing is, like, I think there is a little bit of a fear at this point. If what if somebody finds a loophole, or these kind of things that needs to be very well studied. On my perspective, we're really looking for collaborators, even sharing economy initiatives to actually join in, because of course, when you're the first user of this platform and there is nobody else serving you, then it's going to be like a little bit of a downer. It's like, okay, well, this thing doesn't work. But when we do launch with different sharing economy initiatives all into the same platform, connected already, which have basically an exchange system between them, where basically saying, if I give a ride to a person for 10 kilometers, I can get myself a ride for 10 kilometers back. So this is kind of like the sharing economy. But also, like, since I can exchange this kind of ride token into housing tokens, and then basically change my 10-kilometer ride to a 3-star house in a beautiful city, and or basically convert it into food or lectures. So as long as we have this kind of like economical interaction between these parties, all united into one platform, then we can really start rebuilding from there. So I hope that we will have many sharing economy joining in before we launch, so that well, we'll be able to provide them the biggest amount, the biggest spectrum of services all at once.
It seems almost critical. The providers will really help create that value in that, and the right providers will make the difference.
In terms of for the initiative that would join us, there is only an advantage. You basically access all the user base of all other sharing economies. So it's an exponential multiplier. The more people join, the more useful the platform is. So as long as if you just link up with service providers or like TaskRabbit, or like more sharing economy initiatives for different kind of transportations, accommodation, food, everything that you might need. In the moment that you do interface with our platform, you'll be able to exchange and get all the users of all the other sharing economies initiatives as well.
Okay.
And you don't have you don't need
questions in the room as well, so I just want to bring them in. So what's your question? Okay. When will they converge? Or so the question in the room is looking at the resource-based economy and obviously the kind of economy that we have now. Obviously, those two really aren't really playing really nicely together. So, at what point do they converge? How do they support each other in this process? And I guess also when does the crossover then happen as well?
Sorry, what was the last part?
And when does the crossover happen, moving from the current economy to this resource-based?
Yeah. So right now, everything runs on money. So in order to do anything, we will have to use the monetary system. So the idea is for the sharing economy is about sharing idle resources. So somehow you do get that resource, maybe with the monetary system, and then you basically share it. And in the moment that you share it, you actually make it more valuable because the other people do not need to buy that resource, right? So the system it's transitional, as in there will be resources being input within the system that are acquired basically with the monetary system. But then once they enter the system, they won't have to use that anymore, and there will be the karma system that replaces the monetary system. The difference between the monetary system and the karma system is that the karma really identifies what is the most important things and gives the biggest value to that. So it's not anymore about how well did you market it. It's pretty much how useful it is, And so we see a transition happening by just starting to basically include more and more value within this platform by people providing their time, by people providing their idle resources. Time being also an idle resource. If you think about it, it's if you're unemployed, you're basically selling your time to an employer. And now here you have the choice to choose where to focus your time, so where to spend your time within all the things that your neighbors need. So you have a really relocalization of the exchange of goods and services. So actually, it feels also that you're gonna connect also to your neighbor. When you do want a tomato, you don't want it from some country far away. You might want it from your neighbor. Like if you own a farm and you have an excess of vegetables or eggs, and you just put it within the system because it's like, well, I don't need it, and you're just gonna give it to the egg cooperative and to the salad cooperative, and anybody that say like, oh, I need an egg or I need a salad, that would be already in there asking for it, and you can just give it to them. So there is on one side a transition between including value into the system via the money. So, but then it would disappear within the system. And on the other side is just like idle resources that also represent the real value that is included into the system because it's a surplus basically. So the system would just get more and more value from that. Does that answer the question?
Does that answer your question? Right. Thank you. I think there's quite a distinction looking at the idle resources, and then I just love the little line of the marketing, and then really looking at where the value is, because I think that's also just what we need to be doing as consumers, looking at what value is that we're consuming rather than the product.
And for the sustainable development goals, you know, the problem is like, okay, well, doing that does not have a direct economical value in terms of money, but now in this other system, it has a direct value that you can actually put a number on, and that's basically that becomes a price tag. You know, like the value for the community becomes the price tag. So, and if you serve a lot the community, then you will have a lot of karma, so you can get a lot of things back to the community.
It kind of feels like it's always been the price tag. We just didn't have a way of knowing what that price tag was.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I still have to make my mind on how I think about how prices are defined today. There are people that play football that get more than brain surgeons, so I don't understand exactly how that works. But with this other system, we actually make demand and offer very explicit and visible to everybody. So you cannot even say like, oh, well, I'm going to keep my resources at bay to increase the demand, because you do know that everybody knows that if you want to serve is there. So the competition becomes global. And then you have one global value for that specific item that is valid in here and in India. It just comes with the same value at the global level. On the local level, you do very fast trade. We're trying to basically renormalize all the economy at the global level. You know? A little ambitious as a project, I have to admit, but we have to do it.
Sounds like you already are.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions coming up in the room? Yes. Yes. Not at the moment, I don't think. But I don't know. Do you know what? Have they connected? Have they connected? Burial and Roberta, have you connected with Burial and the project that she's doing?
Yeah, I just actually got a connection email a couple of days ago. So like I'm really looking forward to discuss with her about about how we can collaborate, because apparently there are a lot of similarities. I didn't yet have the time to actually find out exactly how if the direction are completely aligned, but yeah, looking forward to connect with her and exchange some ideas.
It's amazing when we just end up creating all these overlapping places or all these pockets for somebody else to come in and give service or value in that way.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the part of the collaborative economy. You know, like we can go so much faster when if everybody focuses in the current market economy, when you have competition, everybody focuses on exactly the same problems. And everybody's stuck at on the same kind of issues, and you have like all this kind of effort that is being wasted because there is no open communication of what's actually happening. When we go to the collaborative economy, it's really about unite and conquering. You know, like you put all the pieces together and you go much faster when you're all together into that endeavor, because you have more mind onto the same problems, the solutions are shared, and we're gonna get a warp speed when we start to actually bring this up to the real world.
And it comes back also down to that connection and that communication, so that all the providers are talking to each other and growing it and scaling it that way.
Yeah, and here in this situation, the communication happens also within the platform, right? Because when you have one cooperative per item, per good, per service, then it's really about how does the cooperative provide that? You know, what kind of automation can we get? Anybody can submit a proposal to each of the cooperative to just say like, hey, why don't we do it this way? Or I need this much money to actually research this kind of topic. So and the community would actually highlight the more interesting project or the most viable solutions, and they would basically kind of crowdfund the research and the development and the distribution of that kind of solutions. So right now we see the platform as like this kind of like a key component that just brings everybody together, focusing on each of the things that each of the cooperatives needs to do.
Yeah.
So the best knowledge around the world, open source knowledge, of course, around the world will be introduced within the platform and shared across with everybody. So that then you can produce this new device both in here and in India at exactly the same cost.
Amazing. A whole new playing field. Happy whole new playing field.
Sorry, breaking off a little bit.
Okay. No, I was just saying it's a whole new playing field. It's a whole new way of doing business, of creating value.
Yeah, it somehow makes feels that it makes more sense, right? Because it's probably you did already talk about this, but the me economy, we economy kind of perspective. You know, if everybody is trying to survive, then you know you're focusing on yourself first. But when you say like, well, we do now have technology that allow us to thrive, then you know how does value change in that world? How can we define contributions from the people? How can we still focus on the things that needs to be done that automation cannot do yet? In terms of the Maslow pyramid, when we have the bottom layers all automated of you know, like decentralized food production and delivery service powered by renewable energy, traveling on 3D printed transportation devices, automated which drives automatically from the producer to the consumer. I mean, once we have that automated, what does the person need to do? Is just focus on the higher levels of the hierarchy of needs, so that you would see people taking more care of each other because they don't have to survive to get the basic needs.
Yeah.
They don't have to, and then jobs will be reassigned more into, being together and belonging and safety and self-actualization.
Well, obviously, I think something that you just tapped on there is obviously something like this that changes, you know, with artificial intelligence, with those systems being automated, it changes the future of work, it changes the skill sets, it changes all these different elements. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all ripples out.
Yeah.
And how we actually are almost forced to become more human in that space.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's we. Right now, I have a feeling that there are a lot of jobs. People go to their job just to get a salary, and they don't feel motivated. I mean, they're just continuing the same circle of life, or just like working to survive and survive to work, and that, you know, in the moment that you have a way out, that is like, you know, imagine the Uber driver that he can choose himself when to open up your phone and basically be an Uber driver. The rest of the time you can spend with your family, you can stay on the beach. You know, if you do have something that does support you, so if this abundance is able to support you, then you decide how much contribution you want to give to the economy when we extend the Uber concept to basically every single goods and services of what the people need around you. And then you decide what you can contribute to, and maybe, you know, something that makes you feel more, well, it definitely gains from on the human side, because you have the choice.
And just one thing that I personally like in what you just said, looking at the contribution you want to make society and then deciding that value that you want back. Like our mindset goes, we want, and then get met. So I think that's a great shift that that little line, that's a gem to hear from that perspective.
Yeah. So imagine also say cancer research, right? And say like, well, everything is automated. I don't need anything. I'm in my self-sustainable house in the middle of nature, and everything is provided for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I do with my time? I can do painting, you know, I can do philosophy, you know, like, and then well, well, you know, cancer is a big problem, and there is a big request for cancer research. So I can just say, I'm going to dedicate myself to that. So what I do, I join the cancer research cooperative, and basically I will have an indication of where the research is being done, what is needed for the research, and I would learn by doing. So I think that I hope it's going to also change the way that people get educated by just focusing on the task at hand. So on what kind of problem are you trying to solve? And the higher up collaborators, the ones that are more experienced, become the teachers. So you really learn by doing directly, hands-on, onto the task that you care for. And you know, when you do care about the task, trust me, you're going warp speed at learning how to do it. So I hope this is going to also change the way that we do educate people. And there will be work and education kind of merged together into one kind of entity.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that whole holistic design of it, because again, we can create an isolation and like, this is going to be the one product that solves this problem, this is the one product that solves this problem, and we're kind of being counterintuitive in being part of that circular economy and letting everything feed into one another.
Yeah. And every product can also be a recipe. So basically you can have, well, it's a longer conversation, but we have any product that could be like the sum of its parts, and each part could be a product itself. So, you know, like when you ask for a product, you actually ask for the sum of its part, plus maybe some assembly, plus maybe some transportation. So you can create this kind of a hierarchical structure of where the value goes and what is needed, and for each of the points, each of the products, you actually have the sum, all its parts. So you can optimize, you can decide where to optimize, where the focus needs to be. And you say like, well, instead of doing this part, why don't we replace it with this part? And you know, like, so this is really interesting for the open source community, and also like you can see where the parts are, so you can also make the circle around it. Yeah, so that's a nice feature.
And I like what you said earlier, like letting AI help optimize and give us indicators or suggestions, rather than necessarily being the controlling threat that some people might think it could be.
Yeah, well, so AI is a tool, and like every tool, it can be used for different purposes. And right now, AI, you know, like especially the fear of AI comes from the fact that it's actually a fear of the human intention. You know, like AI doesn't have feeling, doesn't have this kind of survival or emotions that are necessity that is typical human. We can try to simulate it, but why would you do that? You know, like it's yeah, ridiculous. But AI it's very good at analyzing data and come up with a realization and solution, even something that we ever thought about. So right now, humans are learning from AI, but that doesn't mean that you know, AI is going to dominate us all. If we do use it correctly, you should never be afraid of your thermostat starting a nuclear war, right? It's it's very detached from the possibility of AI at this point. Although, if you do give AI control over missile codes, then of course, you know, like that thermostat is a little bit different, you know. So it's really about the way that you apply, that you use AI, what's going to happen with it, not from AI by itself.
Curious. Any other questions emerging? You've got a comment? Do you want to come up here? So that's going to, I mean, the round table isn't really going to be shaping up, but sure.
Hi, Roberto.
Hey, Jim. How are you?
I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah, see you. Can you?
I didn't realize it was so warm up here. It's nice.
I'd like to see the crowd.
Oh, the crowd, maybe Lena can turn the computer on. I don't want to muck with her station. So she'll turn it around. Yeah. So I guess just two things that came to my mind during this morning's talks. One is that there's a lot of people in different parts of the world that we brought together. You know, like you in Amsterdam, Ferriel in Edinburgh, Scotland, Jose in Australia, and Gabbers in Hungary, and et cetera. And so all these people all come from different networks and different groups. So I think there's an opportunity for us to actually, and Jose wants this as well. He wants to start to come together and have like maybe an online workshops, online symposium where we can all work together and co-develop all these different strands and converge towards a unified solution.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a very good plan. Yes, and activating the networks in different. We are all working on onto the same topic. So like you know, like as I said before, collaboration is really the key here. To bring all these initiatives together and just move faster.
Yeah. So like my own project in Cape Town, the open source circular eco home, we want to develop these. Like tomorrow, we're going to spend a whole day hacking different technologies from that, and which are technologies have huge ramifications for all parts of society. For instance, we have this water crisis in Cape Town that's just passed, but the drought is permanent. And so we'll be looking at how to develop these technologies and see how we can scale them across the city, as an example. And you know, the paper I sent you recently, we had the talk from Paul Curry this morning on urban planetary boundaries. And so workshopping that idea, how do we integrate that into the platform so that we have metrics that for development, like those UN Sustainable Development Goals, now working under the urban planetary boundary. That's a very powerful concept.
Yeah.
And seeing how we can, you know, bend the curve on that.
Yeah, I'd say that like a tomato or like a drill or one of the sustainable development goals or one of the planetary boundaries, it's all about the collaboration towards achieving something. And since everything can be measured, like okay, is poverty solved, or is the is the amount of water, the water issue resolved? If you do have a measurement, then you can basically use this kind of ideas and platforms to actually bring more people to solve it, and then this, it becomes a little bit of this ongoing issue. So in terms of the Request platform, both the planetary boundaries and the social sustainable development goals, sorry, they're seen as the same kind of thing, just one more cooperative, but it just groups. If the task is not a tomato, it's the resolution of one.
So that's one, and then the second comment was about the karma points. I think you went off air for a few minutes and you talked about the karma points, but I think just to kind of make explicit how the karma points might work, that it actually rewards people in the network who do more good. So the more you help other people, the more benefit you have.
Correct. And that's exactly what, that's why we call it karma, because it feels like indeed, like the more you give, the more you can get back. And if you do not participate in the economy, your karma is zero. So you just, focusing on yourself. When you do focus on others, that's where you do get the karma point. Then if you satisfy the need of one person, only one person, then, and there is nobody else that actually need the same, then you do get one karma point. But when indeed you're solving planetary boundary, then you're actually helping a lot of people. So then you get much higher rewards in the terms. And it is not I or anybody else that decide what value it is. It is just the number of people that requested it. So when you just add them all up, at the local level or at the global level, you know how much karma you can get because you know how many people wanted that.
Right. So the more you the more altruistic you do, and more impact you have in the world, the more
you can get that.
Karma you get, and then the more access to resources you have to continue your development of impacting more people.
Yeah, right. So if you have done an activity that delivers you 100 karma points, you can get 100 activities from other people that only you need. Of course, then the people will need to choose whether or not they want to serve that kind of thing, because maybe it's not convenient for them. But in practice, you can choose then something that is also in high amount of karma. Let's say a Ferrari, and say everybody wants to ride a Ferrari, and say like, well, I'm gonna solve hunger, and with that I do get a lot of karma, and because of that, if there is one Ferrari at this moment across the entire network, then accessing that Ferrari in terms of access, not ownership, will cost us a certain amount of karma because everybody wants to access it. So now, because I did deliver something for the community, I can have I have access to basically the Ferrari, if that's what's interesting, of course.
So in that way, what happens is it's kind of like a meritocracy, where those people who have the best ideas get rewarded. So I guess there's a minimum system too. So everybody, there's like a universal basic income, I suppose, minimum level. But those who do the best, they get more resources to continue making society better for everyone.
Yeah, also that, yes. So first of all, you can basically get access to something that is still scarce. You have priority access to something that is still scarce within the platform. And you can also indeed reassign this karma to, you can actually just give it to other people to do something for you. And of course, you want to don't lose the karma. I mean, when you just start to reintroduce a capitalistic mentality within a framework that focuses the attention on the most important communal gain, then companies or like initiatives or ideas, they're all going to be trying to get the most karma out of the system, which means trying to do the most good. So I would say that any company or any initiative that arise within the platform would be for the common good.
So it's not so much about personal wealth accumulation, but about benefiting the most people.
Correct. Actually, we are considering some ideas. I don't remember the name. Basically, that the karma credits that you do collect will have an expiration date. So that means kind of keep you sharp on the fact that you can get things, but you can't just keep accumulating. You need actually to give it back.
Right.
So that has been proven to speed up economical growth, actually. So although it doesn't sound really promising at first, like, wait, again, I gain this, and now you're gonna take it out if I don't use it. So maybe we can introduce such a system, or having specific condition in which this system actually exists. So to make sure that people do not keep accumulating wealth.
It's going to be a learning experience, isn't it, when we do this?
Yeah, definitely, and we're gonna make mistakes, but that's the only way to learn. So I hope to make the least. We should make the least amount of mistake, but actually more. We should be ready to make mistake and say like, okay, what if a mistake happened and we need to shut it all down? How does that work? This kind of like safety mechanism in making sure that whatever we know that we are at the beginning of this, so we need to make sure that that we have some backup plan in case that the thing doesn't work out. Like every software, there's always version 0.1, right? And it's the first step towards what you're trying to achieve. And I think that actually the 0.1 version is a constant thing. It's always 0.1. It's always a 10% of what it could be. You know, like it's so it's an ongoing update of how the system works. What can it be done better? How many? So how can we change it to even improve it? So it's an ongoing communal effort to better this kind of ideas and ideologies into a workable solution for the entire planet.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Roberto. And I'll let Lena come over and wrap things up with you, and maybe turn the computer around so she can give a shot of the audience.
I can say hello.
If we can do this. Say hello to Cape Town. Thank you, Steve.
Hey there. Now I can almost see you.
Almost you.
Can you answer them?
There's another one. Another one coming. Yay! Thank you so much for making time. Your schedule is also one of those that's very, very busy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I guess it's now just getting it, I guess, people ready and creating those networks and really getting to play with that space. And for everybody here and anybody who's connecting, to really, I guess, put our money where our mouths are and really just embrace the kind of culture that we're trying to create.
Yeah.
So thank you for the technology.
Yeah, and if anybody want to collaborate with us, please drop me a line. We really welcome anybody to join in, and we will join also other initiatives. So it's really about combining, uniting, and conquering. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you so much. We'll make sure that those details get passed around again in case somebody's missed it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.